Hello, this is Alex, and I welcome you to Socialism Survival Podcast number 28. This year, on Sunday, April 11th, is Yom HaShoah, the Remembrance Day of the victims of Holocaust. As we have less and less Holocaust survivors who are still alive, more and more Holocaust deniers are popping up everywhere on this planet. The Holocaust denial actually started right after World War II, but it increases as the strongest historical evidence. Those who survived Holocaust are getting older and die. In this podcast, I will not argue about historical fact of Holocaust, but I dedicate it to show the responsibility of socialism and its ideology for the death of millions of Jews and other people before and during World War II. But first, let me do my short housekeeping and community organizing. I'd like to invite you to visit my website, socialismsurvival.com. You will find there all my podcasts, all blogs and forum and contacts. My email address is podcast@socialismsurvival.com. I'll appreciate your comments or questions. And as always, the most important request, please spread the word. Introduce others to this podcast. First of all, I'd like to express my sympathy to all Holocaust survivors and to all who survived any other genocide, and to all who didn't survive. The 20th century history of socialism of any kind, whether Soviet socialism or German National Socialism or socialism in China, Vietnam, North Korea, Cuba, and other countries, is full of innocent people's corpses. The crying voice of Abel's blood was multiplied with the millions of voices crying to God for justice and revenge. For reference, you can see Genesis 4:10 and Revelation 6:10. The word Holocaust comes from the Greek holos and caust, which literally means whole, burnt, thus referring to Jews being burnt alive and completely eliminated in death camps. While Holocaust and its Hebrew synonym HaShoah are generally used to describe the horror of 6 million of Jews being exterminated by Nazis in World War II, the term has its roots in other horrific events. Vespasian and Titus destroyed Jerusalem, and according to history accounts, Jewish blood was running on the streets of Holy City. Muslims and Muhammad murdered Jews because they rejected to accept him as God's prophet. European crusaders, after capturing Jerusalem, gathered Jews in a synagogue and burned them alive. When I see people who call themselves Christians, they are siding with anti-Semitism, I know that Christ has nothing in common with such people and their hatred. Let's look briefly at his life and character. He was Jew, born in Israel in Jewish family. He was circumcised and had his bar mitzvah according to the law of God given to Moses and following Jewish tradition. He had profound knowledge in Jewish scriptures and often quoted it during his ministry. He loved his people, and he was loved and respected by most of them, except of a few who hated him because they were afraid of losing their power if people will make him a king. He had traditional Jewish Passover Seder with his disciples. Those few in power, having access to Roman authorities, also agitated small crowd. You know, like socialists, they love to agitate. They did it to harm one of their own, Yeshua from Nazareth. They didn't reflect the will of all Jews, many of whom joined the movement after his ascension. His first congregation in Jerusalem had 100% Jewish membership. He prayed for the forgiveness of all his enemies, Jews and Romans, and taught his followers to do the same. He never asked anyone to revenge for his death, indicating that he voluntarily died for others. Whether you believe in him as Savior and Messiah or not, there is no place for hatred between those who follow him and who don't. Knowing him as the teacher of love, mercy, and forgiveness, who was then behind the Crusaders' Holocaust, who inspired Martin Luther to write his book titled On the Jews and Their Lies, that 400 years later inspired Adolf Hitler for his Holocaust. Not Christ, I am sure, but the very opposite source. My tongue gets stiff if I would try to quote the verbal garbage that came from someone of whom some people think as a saint. You may ask, Alex, where is the connection to socialism? First, don't try to connect everything with your human logic. Look at American socialists in power. Is there any logic, any wisdom, any goodness in what they are doing? Remember, in my very first podcast, I told you, speaking of socialists, that they are liars. Their father is Satan, and ideology comes from hell. Satan is not interested in logic or sanity. His goal is to steal, kill, and destroy. Using all kind of madness he can make people to believe in. He knows that truth sets people free. Therefore, he sees his success in keeping people away from it by making them to believe in his lies. He made Soviet people to believe in Karl Marx, socialism lies. He also made Germans believe in a National Socialism lies. Then he made both to kill each other. Soviets wanted to plant their socialism in every country using dictatorship of the proletariat. Many Jews were caught in that kind of socialism, and they paid the price for that. A national socialism, that is fascism, recognizing state socialism and one-party dictatorship as the best form of society, believed that only one or a few select people or races deserved to live in that kind of socialism. Other races should be slaves or servants. Some people, like Jews, didn't deserve even that role. I decided to take this subject also because the Holocaust struck my country, the Ukraine, very hard. In 2 days, on September 29th and 30th of 1941, German troops murdered over 33,000 of Jews, residents of Kiev, Ukrainian capital, after taking them to the Babi Yar ravine. Babi Yar massacre is considered the largest single massacre in the history of Holocaust. Years ago, I've heard a testimony of a Jewish woman who was 4 years old when right there in Babi Yar she was saved by being covered with her mom's body. And then she escaped from the ravine under the cover of the night. I can't imagine what kind of arguments Holocaust deniers may have about that. One thing I am sure of, that they couldn't be found among the Ukrainians who loved their Jewish neighbors so much that accompanied them to Babi Yar and shared their fate. In following years, Nazis added to Babi Yar thousands of Ukrainians, gypsies, and people of other nationalities. Total number of people who were buried there exceeds 100,000. Before the Nazis retreated from Kiev, they attempted to conceal their atrocities. Paul Blobel, who was in control of the mass murders in Babi Yar 2 years earlier, supervised the Sonderaktion 1005 in eliminating its traces. For 6 weeks, from August to September 1943, more than 300 chained prisoners were forced to exhume and burn the corpses, using local headstones as bricks to build ovens, and scattered the ashes on farmland in the vicinity. And even to this day, many Ukrainians will not eat vegetables grown on those farms. That's what just one of socialism varieties can do and will do to the people. In those days, when President of the United States sounds being offended that someone called him a Nazi and socialist, I have a request about something that maybe most of Americans probably have forgotten already. I'd like to see a videotape. LA Times refused to release before elections, before presidential elections, that is showing then an Illinois state senator attending an event in Chicago honoring a Palestinian activist, Rashid Khalidi, who served as a spokesman to master terrorist Yasser Arafat. What former senator and now president was doing and what he was saying among those who, like Nazis, want to remove Jews and Israel from the face of the earth. Let us see that first before deciding if he was right to be offended by being called a Nazi. Before I conclude this short memorial podcast, I'd like to mention one thing that makes me very sad. There is a small group of Orthodox Jews who oppose the state of Israel and who were seen with Iranian President Ahmadinejad, known Israel hater and Holocaust denier, during various occasions. But like in the days of Christ, when the small group that condemned him to death didn't represent all Jewish people, so this group of Ahmadinejad's friends do not represent majority of the Jews. Let me bring another comparison. It is the same as to say that few selfish, crazy Democrat congressmen who voted for socialistic healthcare do not represent the majority of American people. Thank you for listening to this podcast dedicated to Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Memorial Day. If you are still not convinced how much socialists care for you, if you're still not sure for whom to vote in the next elections, then please go to Israel and visit Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial. I had been there. Or go to the Ukraine and visit Babi Yar Memorial. I lived not far from there. Or go to the Polish city of Oswiecim and visit Auschwitz Memorial. Can't go there? Then at least go to my website, socialismsurvival.com, and learn what socialists can do to you and to your family by watching Glenn Beck's documentary, The Revolutionary Holocaust. You just learned what socialists did to Jews. Watch and learn what they did to Ukrainian people during Holodomor, what happened to millions of Chinese, Koreans, Cuban people. And imagine what they about to do to you if you let them by giving up your freedom and constitutional rights. For now, even if I am alone, I step up right here in the land of the free and the home of the brave. I hope those still can be found here. And declare under the Star-Spangled Banner, God bless America. Am Yisrael Chai.